Welcome to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sara Skelton. With me is Justin.webb from the Skelton Group. We've got a little mini podcast here. Today on the show, we have Justin interviewing Glen Kangas, who is an appraiser. He's been on previous episodes. Really insightful discussion about appraisals, and Justin asked him all the questions that I've been wondering and gotten some great answers. And then we had the privilege of having one of our clients, Natalie, on the show. Not Natalie, the lender, but our client, Natalie, who used Natalie as her lender. 2 Natalies for the price of one. Actually, 2 Natalies for the price of none, right? So buckle up, turn on your hazards, and get ready. We got an awesome episode for you.
So we are sitting down with Glen Kangas, appraiser extraordinaire, and I just had a couple questions I wanted to ask you. I thought that our listeners might be really interested in hearing the answers to.
Absolutely.
So the first thing I wanted to address was bonus space. And if for anybody out there doesn't know what bonus space is, it's kind of an industry term for space that isn't listed with the assessor. It's not, some people call it illegal space, some people call it unpermitted space. The most accurate way to describe it is just not listed with the assessor. And, you know, it has a value, right? If you have an extra bedroom or an extra bath that somebody's put in, it has a value to the buyer because you can, you know, put your kid in there. And so I've got a lot of questions about this because this is sort of even for realtors who've been doing this for years, it's sort of a mysterious topic, right? What is that worth? And I was just hoping to get some answers.
Yeah, it's actually a great question, and one of the more challenging questions on the appraisal front. Some lenders do not allow you to count that if it's not permitted. In the appraisal lending world, it's non-permitted is the term that we use for that. But if a lender allows you to give it value by demonstrating that it has value in the market, the first thing that I ask if it has any health and safety issues, if it's built similar in quality to the rest of the house. But assuming that it does contribute value. And the analysis that we've done, it tends to be very difficult. Essentially, the ideal thing is to find something that has some similar feature. So if someone has a pool, you want to sale with a pool. Got a non-permitted addition? We want to sale with a non-permitted addition. And that allows us to analyze the market. And what we found, honestly, is that the contributory value is not quite the same as permitted square footage. It tends to be anywhere from 50 to 75% of permitted square footage. I call it the hassle factor because if somebody wanted to get it permitted, they got to go through the process. So that's my discount for me having to deal with it because you didn't deal with it. Now, I do also recommend people, if you have non-permitted square footage and you're going to sell your house, that's the time to get it fixed because you're not taxed on it when it's not permitted. But if you get it fixed, then now it increases that and makes it easier to sell for the high price.
And Sara and I've been through this. You can petition the assessor there's a form that you have to add it. And I actually haven't been through the whole process to see how that works out, where they actually show up and inspect it or what that goes be. I know you can get it added. And what we've recommended before, like try and get this permitted before you sell, but right before you sell, because you don't want to be taxed on it until then.
Right. Yeah, the tough thing on that too is how long will it take to get that? And then certain cities, you know, it's something I've been meaning to try and do is interview planning departments on what's your process for that. How arduous is it? Do they make you tear it down? Do they make you tear into the walls and do some major stuff just so they can inspect it? Or do they come and give it a look, and if everything looks okay and they run a few tests, then, you know, you pay whatever you pay and it's not too bad. So that would probably be the biggest factor would be what city you're in. Are you in unincorporated LA, the city of LA, a specific city? And what the process would be. And there are cities that are pretty restrictive, and they're like, no, you got to tear it down.
And I wonder, is the new ADU law bump into this at all? Like, could you say, hey, I've got this unpermitted garage conversion,
right,
and I want to bring it up to code and call it an ADU, put the ADU permit in. Have you seen those?
Yeah, actually, that's something that I was just talking to an agent on a property I was appraising for a purchase. It had a non-permitted ADU on the back. And they were just saying, oh, it's not permitted, it's nothing. And the county, it was in county area, had told them that they got to tear it down back in 2019. Well, the ADU laws that came out, the first one was 2017. The second one was 2020, which basically said the state has told the cities and the counties, you've got to make it easy for them to permit an ADU, and it's got to be fast. So you can't have any bogus delays because you don't want ADUs. So nowadays it's much easier to get something permitted that wasn't permitted. And the important thing really to remember for an ADU is the definition of an ADU is independent from the main living unit with its own full kitchen, which means a kitchen is a counter space, a sink, and a stove or stove hookup, and then a separate sleeping quarters and a separate bath. So if it doesn't meet those criteria, then it would be a guest house or a pool house or something like that. But for an ADU specifically, those are the criteria that it would need to meet.
And then I had a little note here that I wanted to follow up on. You said some of the lenders just simply will not allow you to even consider bonus space. How does that breakdown work? 50% of the lenders, 75% of lenders?
It's actually a much smaller percent. It's probably less than 25%. FHA does not include non-permitted area. So if it's an FHA, it doesn't matter what the lender says. The FHA requirements are, it can't count. But in the conventional world, probably less than 25% of lenders, and it might be even be less than 10%. I work for a handful of lenders, but not every lender. So.
And so your appraisal of the same property would be different if it was a FHA loan than if it was a conventional loan.
Right. And then VA has their own requirements, and I honestly don't know if VA allows that or not either. And VA is similar to FHA from what I understand.
If I was going to put my money on it, I'd probably say they won't.
It's probably the same thing. Yeah. They're both from the government.
Well, thank you so much for answering these questions. Even doing this professionally, they've kind of been in the back of my mind. It's a little bit mysterious, and so it's just lovely to get some more insight on it.
Oh, my pleasure. The appraisal world's a crazy world, and it's fun to talk about it.
So, Natalie, we had the pleasure of working with you on your real estate journey, and you found us by listening to the podcast.
I did. It was just a fortuitous coincidence. I was on a road trip back to LA in January of this year, and I binged your whole podcast, and I felt like coming out the other end of approximately 6 hours of real estate podcasting that I've actually had somewhat of a handle on, at least the first steps, and realized, listening to you and everyone else that you'd interviewed on your podcast, that we shared like a very similar approach to finances and just the philosophy around like what it means to buy a home and real estate in Los Angeles. And, I thought, what? Why not? Let's reach out. Let's see what happens.
And you reached out to us, and shortly thereafter, you were in escrow on an amazing property. And Justin and I talk about you all the time because we think you just got an amazing buy. We're so happy for you.
Shortly, it was next to immediate. Like, honestly, the least stressful thing this year was buying a house in the craziest real estate market that LA has pretty much ever seen because of you guys. So I will forever and always be grateful to you both and to the other Natalie, of course, for not just holding my hand, but essentially like just carrying through the process.
So from the time you contacted us till you were in escrow, how long was that, Natalie?
God, wasn't it like a month? It was something. It was like 3 weeks to a month. Because I reached. It was like ridiculously fast. Not only that, but Justin, remember, it was my first offer. Like we had made no other offers. I submitted an offer through you, of course, and then it was accepted. And then we were in escrow, and it was just like, this is happening so fast.
I remember telling you, like, it's a really tough market. You're going to have to put in like, 5, 10, 15 offers. It's going to be a while, but I'll be with you this whole journey. And it's like, bam.
Justin, when I called you, I was like, I'd like to buy, something in like the next year or two. I want to just get, be like proactive and get started. And like, oh my God, I was just like into the whole situation and out the other end of it in like 60 days.
And sometimes things that are just meant to be just fall into place. For every very difficult, complicated transaction, there's one that's just really serendipitous and just as easy and beautiful and wonderful. And we can't promise all of our listeners that we can get you into escrow in 3 weeks.
I will say, like, my understanding, Justin, you can correct me, but perhaps, as far as you're concerned, like maybe it was simple, but it seemed like that there was quite a bit going on the back end that Justin was actually running defense for me on. So I didn't personally have to deal with it. But like especially once I came out the other end of it, I realized just how much work that Justin and Natalie had put in on this. Like, I was getting text messages and emails from Natalie at like 10 p.m. on a Saturday. And I really truly understood at that point, like, had I gone with, just rando National Bank or, whatever, like, there is no way my loan officer would have been in touch with us at 10 p.m. on a Saturday to make this happen.
We love Natalie Salins from Movement Mortgage. She's on the podcast all the time. And how funny, we have our client Natalie working with our wonderful lender friend, Natalie Salins. So 2 Natalies. Natalie, thank you so much for coming on and just sharing your experience. You're an absolute joy. You're such a positive, fun person, and we really love having you as, part of our family in the Skelton group now. And we can't wait to see how you build your real estate empire.
I certainly hope so, and it will absolutely be with you guys. And by the way, I truly hope that all of you manage to take some vacation, because the way that I see you guys work, there is no way you can do that for everybody all the time. You've got to be able to take some vacation.
I think Justin's learned to sleep with his eyes open. I just want to thank our guest, Glen Kangas, and our wonderful client, Natalie, for being on the show. You're listening to the LA Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sara Skelton. With me in studio is Justin.webb. We hope you have an awesome, safe 2023, and we've got lots more podcasts coming down the pipeline. See you soon.